you've got a planned series. I assume there's some form of an outline and a plan going in. Where do you fall on that spectrum between a diligent plotter and just writing by the seat of your pantser?
I'm somewhere in between. I think most people are somewhere in between. So I do a lot of research for my books too. So I kind of count research as plotting in a way. I had to do a lot of, like, for this particular series, I had to do a lot of world building first before I could even get to the point of writing my characters and doing backstories for my characters and then having some kind of plot. Like, I had no idea where the plot was going. I just knew I had really cool characters and a really cool world. And now they had to go do something. And I had to figure that out as I went. So the plot was actually a lot more pantsed as I went through it. And because it was a thriller, I had to go back and do actually more editing than I normally would have to, because it was so pantsed to get there. Normally I'll have sort of a 5-point outline, like 5 critical points in the story that I kind of know what's going to happen, and at least in the general sense. And then I'll start working chapter by chapter and, like, write. A lot of times I have to write the first couple of chapters to sort of set the scene, set it up. And once I'm happy with that, that gives me a vector of where the story's going, and then I can, like, plot out, okay, from now until the midpoint, these are the things that are going to happen. I might only vaguely know what's going to happen in the second half of the book. I know where it's going to end, but like that in between part, it's a little mushy.
So in a series, you know the beginning of the first book, and then you know what's going to happen in the last scene of the last book, and then that whole middle is just, we'll see.
Well, usually I know my midpoint.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the idea of having the midpoint be a pivot in the book, where you're going to have some dramatic reveals, you're going to have your characters discover some things about themselves, and they need to, like, go from the beginning of this, which may be them being dragged through. It's sort of an emotional pivot point between when they're being dragged through, they discover something about who they really are and make a commitment to doing the rest of the story. And so that pivot point often will define the structure of the whole story, actually, because that's, like, almost the most important part. Not really, but it's high up there. So I usually know the beginning and the pivot and the end, and maybe a couple of sort of key scenes in between that just sort of come to me. That happens a lot too. But other than that, I figure it out as I go. So